Hey guys, in this video, we're gonna go start to finish on a project. I want you to see step by step along the way what we're gonna do. Starting with a blank piece of leather, we're gonna go all the way through to a finished product. And what I'm gonna work on is a project that's very small. It's doable, it's achievable. If you're just starting out, you don't need a lot of leather to do this. We don't need a lot of tools to do this. We don't need a lot of different products to do this. But it's going to be something that we're gonna finish all the way, start to finish. And this is gonna be a trading card. So at Leather Life Convention, we started this board, right? We didn't start the idea of trading cards, but we did start our trading card board where people could have a card that they have done, tooled, done something on. They leave it, take somebody else's card that they have done, right? The whole idea of trading cards, we trade back and forth. But as you can see, there's a lot on here without any color or finish on there. They're just tooled up because at convention we were doing a lot of tooling, not so much the finish and dye work. So we're gonna do one up so we can add it to the board, start adding some in here with some color and finish and antique and all that. So I want to show you through all those steps. But like I said, it doesn't take a lot of leather. So if you've just got one of our practice tooling packs here, this 1 pound practice bundle, there is likely several pieces big enough to do this. This is kind of our marker. I don't want anything smaller than this. We might go narrow for some bracelets in these packs, but I want chunks at least this big to be able to do projects like this. If you're gonna cut this out, this is 2.5 inches wide by 4 inches tall, or turn it that way, however you wanna do your card up. But we're gonna go to the bench, talk about some pattern layout, go through carving this, and then go through all the finish steps. And we're gonna do some sort of dye work on here, a little bit of antique and finish, and show you how we can get a really nice look using simple products, make it very achievable. Let's head over to the marble and get started. Before I can start tooling on this or do anything like that, we gotta prep this leather. So this is an 8-9 ounce. This or anything thinner, I do want to tape the back just to avoid any stretching in there. So I got clear packing tape here. We're gonna run this out on the back. Oh man, tried these retractable knives here in the shop. I don't like them. They automatically pop back. So I don't recommend these. I like the good old regular box knife, so I'm actually going to set that one aside. There we go. That way the blade stays out. Okay, get that taped, and again, that is simply to avoid stretching as we're tooling that. Get the extra tape cut off there. Now we're set to go. Okay, we're gonna wet this down. So this is our casing process. Just gonna dampen that up. I'm gonna kind of show you how I'm gonna lay this out without using a full-on pattern here. We're just gonna kind of get an idea and run with it. But I am going to start with my maker's mark, because that's kind of a cool part of the trading cards, is putting your maker's mark on the front or signing the back. We're going to go ahead and put this mark up here in the front. So I'm going to pick a spot for it. Now, this maker's mark obviously is not in a beginner's tool set, but the other tools we'll use are in the beginner set. Rock that back to me a little bit, make sure we got a nice impression. People ask me all the time, where do you get your maker's mark at? I got this from Steel Stamps. Love what they do. They're out of Boise, Idaho, and he does an amazing job on his stamps. So really like working with him for any of those made stamps like that. But now, what are we gonna do on the rest of this? Let's figure it out. I think I wanna do maybe kind of just a little bit of tooling, so maybe a little swirl and vine work right here, and then we'll do a little bit of a partial geometric. We'll just kind of create our own little pattern as we go. I think it's going to be pretty cool. So one thing is laying that out. I'm going to just use my stylus here out of that beginner's kit as well and start getting an idea. Now, if you have a pattern already from any other pattern pack that you do, this is a little wallet pattern. Maybe I wanted to use part of this and put it on and trace it out. You sure can. You can piece patterns together real easy, but we're gonna go ahead and just come right out from underneath my maker's mark here. I'm gonna look at a little bit of a swirl on this side. And run right up this side with that vine. This is going to just give me a rough idea on where I want my lines to go. Now again, I don't expect, especially if you're just getting started, for you to be necessarily drawing this all out. So you might want to take a printed pattern and transfer it on, or use part of one. But we're just gonna sketch right around here. And create this pattern that we're gonna tool in. So there you can kind of see that, a little bit of a rough idea of what we're gonna do. I'm actually gonna change that somewhat. There we go, we'll put a little seed pod coming out of there. There we go, that's gonna work. All right, now we're already wet down and cased up, so I'm gonna cut this portion in, and then we'll talk about that other corner and the border that we're gonna do. So first thing here, we're gonna tip that knife away from me, pulling that down, rotating around, getting that nice smooth cut around there. Now I have a nice tight turn that we're coming with this big swirl that we drew in here. So I get my knife, my arm, my leather, it's all rotating. Get that smooth cut in here. Same thing with our inside line. Get that pulled around. There we go, you can see that swirl come and kind of wrap underneath itself there. Let's look at our outside line. Now when I bring this point up here, I'm not going to connect it with my knife. I want to get in good habits here. So I leave that a little bit spaced apart and we'll connect it when we bevel. The reason is we want to have all the strength of that leather. Again, getting in good habits. This isn't going to get wear and tear. It's a trading card, but anything bent and pliable like that, belt, purse, anything that's getting worn, I don't want that point to lift up. So I want all the strength of that leather holding it together. All right, there we go. We got a little bit of floral, a little bit of vine work in there. Now let's do something up here. First, I'm gonna start with a border. Now, a set of wing dividers is really handy. I'm just gonna kind of use my fingernail, pinch the side here and use this right now to give me an idea. There we go. Those are homemade wing dividers. See, that gives us a nice even border around there. We're pretty darn close for what we're doing. And now I can cut that line in. That in, again, good habits. My corners aren't actually touching and connected. All right, now we're getting that border put in there. We're looking pretty good. Next thing, I better check on this focus and make sure we are, there we go. Switch that focus up. I don't want that getting fuzzy on you. All right, we're cut in there. Now we're gonna take our bevel and we'll start getting this beveled in. So again, that bevel, we're flat on the one side. I'm always keeping that flat side of the bevel to me. This angled part is away so I can see that in my line. And we're gonna bevel our border in here first. So I'm beveling inside there. Every time I'm hitting that tool, it's actually picking up and moving over, but it's just barely moving. Just barely moving each time. That's what's going to get that nice smooth bevel line that we're after. Like I said, those lines that we don't connect, or those points that we're not connecting with our knife, we connect them when we bevel, so they look like they're cut all the way. Okay, and now with our vine work here, we can get that beveled in. Now, if you do want to try drawing right onto your leather, but maybe don't want to use that stylus, you can use a pencil, but what works really well is called an 8B pencil. 8 and then the letter B. And what that is it's a little softer lead or softer graphite, or however that works out, but then just your regular number 2 pencil. So that way you would use that on dry leather and then it'll erase off of there easy too. And when I do that, I don't use any fancy special erasers. Actually, I find the eraser on my mechanical pencils seems to work really well, taking that 8B lead off of leather. So I usually have an 8B pencil and a mechanical pencil sitting around close to my bench here. Beveling, I think, is probably that's the step that, to me, takes the longest out of any of your steps in tooling. But, boy, it just sets you up to have a nice, clean look to your tooling. So it's worth the time that it takes to make sure you get those nice, smooth bevel lines. Clean that work up. But it is also really nice once you get past your beveling and get to start cranking through some of the other tools. They seem to have the most impact as far as the fun difference you get to see with all the details, but good beveling sure makes a difference. Now, you notice I kind of stopped my beveling on the inside of that curve because things were getting a little tight for this size of bevel that I had, and I don't want to mush down a bunch of leather that I don't want to bevel, because that bevel's a little wide for that curve. So what I'm going to do is size down, and again, these are all tools from our beginner starter kit, the deluxe beginners tooling kit that we offer. We'll link that up in case you're just getting started and need some tools. The big thing about these tools is they're ones I've picked for the impression they make. It's not that they're super fancy tools or anything, but they're a nice crisp bevel, things like that. They're ones that pretty closely replicate the nicer tools as far as the impressions, and get you to start getting some success with your tooling before you make huge investments in those tools. So this bevel I switched to is just a narrower version of the bevel that I had, right? So it fits around that tiny little curve a whole lot better than that first one did. So now our beveling's done. Let's look at what we're gonna do here. We're going to start putting some shading in our vine work here. So I'm gonna switch over to this vertical line thumbprint. That's what I like to do, is that shading with. There's a wide end and a narrow end, and you can use both of them. It's just which one fits in your spot better that you're doing. So this particular thing I drew out, I think that narrow end is gonna work pretty good. So I'm gonna tip that tool, try to bring my shading towards that rounded edge of this vine here. I don't want the full tool impression, I'm just getting that corner of it. And I want that shading or that shadowing effect to fade down that vine. So you can see I get that darker burnish, that darker color in there, and then it fades off. I'm going to play with that just a little bit more here, bring that shading down. There we go, that's smoothing things up how I want them. And here's the other tip for you too. If you're not getting things quite as smooth and you need to smooth them out more, you can always grab the modeling spoon end of your stylus here and run that by hand a little bit and smooth things out. There's no rules against that. So if that just gives you a new level of freedom in your tooling, you're welcome. But we can run that by hand a little bit if we need to. Okay, now I want to get some more shading in here. We're gonna tip this and really kind of shade down on the bottom side of that swirl that tucks underneath itself. There we go, get a little color in that, show that's the bottom side. And then I'm going to tip this tool and get it down in this sticker vine here. Now we'll do the same thing, just get right up on the edges. That little pod in the middle here. All right, shows that definition there. All right, that's all the shading we're gonna do with that. We'll get that tool to the side. And now I wanna come around this big swirl here. We're gonna use a veiner. This tool is gonna help put a little bit of texture in there. You can see it's kind of got a little half round to it. And this one is textured. You can see some lines in here. So it's gonna give a little bit of texture in there. These are gonna come in different curves, different widths, all that. This is, again, same one from the kit. It's nice, it's thin enough. I think it makes a nice crisp impression too. So I'm gonna tip this tool back kind of to the side here, because I don't want the full tool impression. We're gonna rotate around the outside of this swirl here. So I'm going to start real light as far as how hard I'm tapping. As I'm rotating around, with that tool still tipped, I'm hitting just a little bit harder. And you can see that impression gets a little bit deeper and a little further into the vine. And now I'm going to start tapering that off and hitting a little lighter, a little less as I rotate around all the way to the end here. See that definition it gives around there? Kind of a cool effect. All right, we need to put some background in these spots. Background tool I love starting people with is this backgrounder. It's a matte backgrounder. We're literally gonna matte that background down. So we fit right in here. I'm hitting that tool straight up and down. We're not really tipping this one, but it can overlap a little bit as need be. I can turn around, that's a little bit teardrop shaped, so there's a narrower point that fits down in those corners pretty good. that starts really standing that tooling out. The other cool effect we can do with this, I'm gonna come along the outside of this tooling here. Now I'm gonna tip this tool to give it a little bit of effect of it kind of fading away here. But this is just gonna throw a little bit of texture on the outside. You can see it's separating the tooling from this blank space here that we're gonna put some geometric of some sort in. Tipping that tool back. Not really after getting the whole tool impression. I kind of want to lighten that off a little bit out there. And again, to help blend this, we're going to grab that modeling spoon, just kind of blend that away as it comes up into the smooth leather here. All right. Now, one last place I can see I didn't bevel is on the outside of that maker's mark, so I'm going to grab that bevel back again, and we're going to bevel right around that maker's mark there. Okay. Now for doing our pattern and fill, oh, before I fill that, oh my goodness, I almost forgot my favorite part of tooling here, decorative cuts. So in this vine work, we're gonna add some decorative cuts, that swivel knife. I'm gonna bring a couple cuts down on that longer vine there. I can put some smaller curved cuts in that little filler there in the middle. Same thing on this little sticker vine down here. Put a couple cuts in there. You can see they taper a little bit, right? We're coming to that point at the end. They get a little wider and then narrow back down the vine. Now on this swirl out here, I'm gonna rotate that around. We're gonna stack a couple cuts towards the outside. And I'm gonna pull one longer one right around the inside here. It's decorative cuts, starting them deep, fading them off to light as we roll there. All right, the last thing we're gonna do is fill up this with a little bit of geometric. So we're just gonna go ahead and use the basket stamp right out of our kit as well. Now to do that, we wanna have a guideline, okay? We need to have a line of some sort as a guide. So I'm not gonna get fancy on you. We're gonna grab something else I got straight here. I have another trading card. And I'm gonna line that up so we're perpendicular here. Make a light line, just like that. You probably can't even see it on the camera. I'll turn so you can see it, hopefully. See this little bit of a guideline right in there. There we go. Maybe you can see that there. All right, with that line, I'm gonna take this stamp and I'm gonna show you here how we're gonna line this up. There's a couple ways to do this, but I'm gonna show you more of the, what I would call the simpler way here. We'll turn it that way so we can see. Maybe it's not simple, but it's gonna be the nice clean way of doing this. So the front corner here, I want this is gonna wind up being right on my line, okay? This back side here, rather than going with that point, I wanna have almost the base of this H. So you think of that stamp as being an H, right? We got legs down each side and then this big cross piece in the middle here. So this point where that cross piece meets the leg, that's where I'm putting on this back side here. And I kind of push down. So just pushing down, my line is coming and it hits this point, comes through, and then where the base of that center bar meets my leg, that's where it's hitting the line again here. Because when I put this stamp back in, I'm gonna hit it down harder here, and then we're gonna move it up one. That bottom leg right here overlaps. It doesn't just meet up at the end, it overlaps and sits in where that last one did. So we'll line that one up, and then my other point is going to go right on my line. So we're going to keep stamping down like this. I'm going to give it just a touch more water here, kind of light, but hopefully it's going to make it where you can see this a little bit better. Now we're going to put that stamp back in place. Now as I move up, again, that leg's going to overlap and go right down into that leg. And then my other point is going to be right on my line. Do this as I'm looking around the camera here, makes me keep moving some. Okay, and as I get down here close to this tooling, I want it to fade off, so I'm going to put it in here and I'm going to tip that tool back so it looks like it just fades off underneath there. Now I can turn that piece. We'll go back up to this side here, to my right. Put that leg in here with it tipped so I don't hit my border. Now, with those two pieces there, both legs are going to overlap so it just fits in place here. Now that sets me up here for these two to overlap. Here, I'm going to really tip that tool. Again, so it gets that look like it's fading off underneath there. Anytime you're close to a border or close to anything, we can tip that tool and get partial impression without actually running it all the way off and hitting our border. Once we hit this in, I'll show you where we come back with what's called an actual border stamp and clean up that border some. Okay, now here we're pretty tight, but I'm going to really tip this tool and just get a little extra filled in here. And I'll turn this around. I got this little window to fill in. So I'm going to tip that tool. Tip that tool again, so it's getting that look of it fading underneath there. I have room where I can hit that flat. Really get that nice deep impression in there. All right, now I said there's one more tool we're going to use before we get done with the tooling portion of this project, and that's going to be this border stamp. This one goes pretty darn quick, but we're going to start right down here at the bottom. It's kind of a half round tool, so it's flat on the one side, and we're half round there with some dots and lines in there. Put that right next to the border that we cut and beveled. Nice even spacing, just barely putting them next to each other. Turn that as we go around here. And that cleans up the edge around that basket stamp. Anywhere that we were fading those lines out with the basket, they just tuck right underneath that border. There we have it. We have a partial tooled, partial basket stamp piece. I'm going to take the tape off the back because we don't need that anymore. It's not going to stretch. We're done tooling with it. If I can grab, there we go. Get the edge of that leather. Now with this still being damp, here's a little trick for you. Lay that flat and then pull our tape back. That way we're not stretching our leather, we're just peeling our tape off. Now we can let this sit, dry up a little bit, and then we'll head over to the dye and finish station and get a plan for what we're gonna do color-wise on this. We're gonna play with some colors and try something, kind of a combination I don't know if I've tried, or I don't know if I remember trying it at least. But we're gonna go with oxblood. Now these are Phoebe's dyes. I'm gonna take oxblood, which is kind of a deep red, and we're gonna come down and catch our backgrounds with this dye, and I think I'm gonna dye the whole basket area with it, and then we'll come back and put walnut on around the outside edges or the borders of this. And again, I don't know, might be kind of a neat combination, or at least something to play with. That's kind of the benefit of little projects like this. These little trading cards are great because it allows us to try different things without being overly committed on a huge project. But you know, this is a small scale project that doesn't take a whole lot of time, and I'm not really ruining anything if I get done and like, I don't really like that color combination. But it's a place to try it to where I might go, man, that actually looked super cool. I can do that on a whole belt and it would be awesome. You know, we can kind of stumble on some fun new things just by trying them on little projects like this, which we can test with different colors, we can test with different techniques, and see how we like those results. The main thing when I'm putting this dye down right now though is just like when we case our leather and get it wet for tooling, I'm watching how quick that water absorbs. I'm kind of doing the same thing with this dye here. As I'm going around the edge, I want to make sure that I'm getting nice, good, consistent, even dye. And I'm going again right out on that edge so I know where we're going to be kind of clean where those meet up with the border. And then I can come back with a bigger applicator and get more dye laid on out here in the center where we got a little bigger area to deal with. And the colors of all these dyes kind of changes once you start putting finished products over top as well. So we'll put a seal and an antique and all sorts of stuff that, again, just kind of play and see how we like this color combo going here. I'm really liking this idea of leaving the trading card board up in the shop, not just at convention, but year-round in here. Because then as people are traveling through, they can, if they know they're coming through, they can do up a card ahead of time, bring one in, find one to trade, and so it'll be a fun thing to keep going with. And it's also going to give me good feedback on different things like this that we try, right? Try a little color combo as people come in and see that. They can kind of share their thoughts and like, ooh, I like that one, or that one's not my favorite. So whether it's leather workers or even just the general public that's in shopping with us, they'll be able to kind of provide good feedback. So I'm excited for those opportunities as well. And it just provides little sample pieces of different things. Okay. Again, right around here. Now that we're around that pretty clean, I can switch and put that little dye brush down and actually get a larger foam applicator. Saves a little bit of time and headache going through larger areas. That way I can get a nice even coat. And it doesn't take forever like it would with the little brush if I was trying to cover all that area. The benefit of the little detail brush is just to make sure I don't get dye where I don't want to as we get right up in next to those edges. Okay, now I think we're on there pretty even there. Now we have to just trust that the dye is going to do its job and soak in and finish up how we want it to. So I'm going to put the lid on this one, and then we'll switch to one of my favorite browns that we use is walnut. Now these are in bigger glass jars that I put them in, but there's are just the Phoebeans dye here. So this is a Phoebeans Pro dye. I honestly, on the oxblood, I can't remember off the top of my head whether that is a pro dye or a leather dye. If they have the color that I want in a pro dye, I'll use the pro dye. If not, then I will use the leather dye. It's just based on if they have the color that I'm after. And I know walnut's a pro dye, and I can't remember if the oxblood is or not. But all right, we're gonna use this here. I'm gonna see. I'm going to test myself with this foam applicator and see just how close I get to that edge without messing it up here, I'm hoping. I'm going to go right around this border. You can see I even tip that leather piece that I'm working on just to make sure I can see really good in there. And you may not be able to see very good on the camera right now, but I'm going to risk that you can't see and make sure that I can see really good so I don't mess this up. Well, if we're out of focus, we'll get back in here real shortly. All right, now test myself around this maker's mark. Holy smokes, I made want to get a small little detail brush to get right up next to things here, but again, I'll just test myself and push the limits here just to see. We never quite know where our limits are unless we push them, right? Well, nice thing, this foam brush that I grabbed, this was a fresh, brand new one. So it's nice and crisp and clean on those edges. It's got a nice sharp edge there. It's letting me get right where I want to. And the other thing I'm using to my advantage here is that leather is, or that dye is going to run on your leather, kind of soaks up. So I'm making sure I have plenty on my sponge and then starting just a little bit away from that bevel line and then letting it soak down into there. I say that with confidence, but I really should wait till I get all the way around here to be real confident and make sure that I don't mess this up here. One little point there. Ooh, that was close. All right. Getting one more nice even coat across here. So I want a nice deep dark walnut color. Okay, going off first impressions, because I always just look right first on this. It's not my favorite combination yet, but we can never judge entirely till we get all the products done, because this is far from what it's gonna actually finally look like. The other thing I'm gonna do though is catch my edge while I have this foam brush here. And this just works pretty darn well on those edges for something like this. Okay. Now with the dye, I'm not gonna cut the camera or anything. I want you to see how I do this in real time. Over top of my dye, that's when I come with the oil. So I'm just gonna reach behind me here and grab our oil. This stuff here is this is neat's foot oil that I'm using. You can use neat's foot oil or Duff's or anything's gonna work good. But get a little bit of that on my sheepskin. And again, this is right over top of that dye we just put down. To me, that helps. It's gonna soak in there, help even that dye out as that all soaks up and dries in. But we'll let this sit for quite a while. Let all the dye dry, this oil soak in, and then we'll come back with our final finished products on here. Okay, that oil's had time to set in. Now we're gonna come back with Resin. This product here is gonna seal up the top of our leather there and actually act as a resist for our antique. So I put that on with a little scrap of sheepskin. I just kind of knock down any big bubbles that we get there. And then we'll let that sit and dry. Once that's dry, then we'll come back with our antique, and I'll show you that process as well. Now that Resiline's set up, we're gonna come back with our antique finish. And this one here, you notice I have a glove on so I don't antique my fingers, but we're gonna get some antique on that sheepskin. Work in circles, making sure I'm just getting it on the top here. I don't want it around on the sides of my leather as much as I can avoid it. But we're gonna get it right into all those cuts and cracks and all the details that we've put on there. And then I'm gonna come right back, wipe that off. When we use our dye and finish starter kit, you'll notice in there of my favorite applicators, there's a sock in there. That's actually what I really like using is the inside. I turn that inside out, but I love the texture on that sock on the inside. It seems to be just the right texture to pull that antique out of the places we want it pulled out of, but leave enough in there to really highlight all that detail work that we've done. Now this is another one, kind of like where I didn't stop the camera before we put the oil on. I'm not gonna stop the camera after our antique, because as long as it takes me really just to put that lid back on our jar, I'm going to grab a blue paper towel, because these work extremely well for this, and grab our Resin back again. Now what this is gonna do, we're gonna put our final coat on here. And it's gonna do a couple things. One, it's gonna help me remove even more antique. So watch this, I put that on there, nice ample supply of that. And then I wipe instantly. I'm gonna come right back, oops, throw my leather around, but wipe right back off, and you can see that darker antique and stuff that we've pulled off here. But there's this milky, muddy look down in those cracks and stuff. I want that, I'm leaving that. I don't want to try digging that out with my paper towel, because what that is our Resin mixed with the antique that's still down in there. That's what's gonna actually seal that in there and hold it, so we don't have that crack off, dry, flaky stuff later on down the road. But that milky color, all that dirty stuff, that's gonna dry in, be crystal clear, and look amazing here once this dries up. I'm also gonna finish the back of this, so we'll tip that over. I have my Resolene out, so we're just going to go ahead and use Resolene on it because I already have that sitting here. Another good product is Leather Balm, works good on the back of there, but this Resolene works good. It's going to help mat down those loose fibers on the back side of this. Seeing as how this isn't a project that I'm going to line, we're just going to clean that up, seal that off a little bit. Just make that a little bit nicer. Again, for a trading card, does it really need it? Nah, probably not. But hey, it'll just make it that much nicer when somebody grabs a hold of that thing. We'll let that kind of dry up, and then our last step to this guy is going to be to slick these edges, because I do want those feeling really nice and slick when somebody grabs a hold of their trading card. For slicking the edges up on this, we're going to use gum tragacanth today. Give that a little shake. Oops, try not to throw the cap everywhere. But we're going to get just a little bit of that with my dauber, and then we're going to come right along the edge here. Now, again, for this project and what it is, I didn't spend a ton of time sanding or anything. We already had a nice clean cut edge on this. So we're gonna just run that gum trag around here and then slick that off. So nice even coat of that. Now we're gonna grab that scrap of canvas here, and we're going to start applying a little bit of elbow grease to it. And this is going to help really start getting that nice glass finish on those edges. Somebody picks this project up, they're going to not feel a rough edge against their hand. They're going to feel that nice smooth edge, what we're after. Any project you're doing, if you can slick those edges up, that's going to really help put that professional finish on it. It's a really simple way to elevate your work and start standing it out against other beginner level work. So slicked really nice. Oh man, those are feeling pretty good. I wish you could feel that through the camera, but pretty tough to do. All right, now again, as I finish this up, we'll link up stuff down below if you need any of those products or kits or whatnot. Happy to help you out getting started, but with just a little bit of leather, you can go start to finish on really a cool little project like this. Again, a great thing to try and test out different colors and techniques that you want to do. But I appreciate you being a part of this video, and thank you for allowing me to be part of your Leathercraft journey. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos. Can't wait to see you in the next one, guys.